Hello, I am Adrienne Quinn Martin. I'll be your host for this week's episode of Blue Talk Texas, where we discuss Texas politics with Democratic candidates from across the state. Joining us today is Trey Hunt, candidate for Congressional District 12, Michelle Beckley, State House Representative and candidate for Lieutenant Governor, Grant Wood, candidate for Hood County Commissioner, Place 4. Thank you all for joining me today. Our topics are going to be Republican extremism, voting rights, and flipping Texas blue. I'm so looking forward to hearing all of your thoughts. So what we're going to do is jump right into our discussion. At the end, you'll each get a moment to talk about your campaigns. Okay, all over Texas, we've seen a rise of extremism from local school boards all the way to the legislature, with Republicans running for office, all attempting to please extreme right voters. The chilling effect has been regular citizens are actively losing basic rights. Trey, welcome. Congress has a really big job in front of them, not only dealing with false claims of election fraud, but January 6th, and also dealing with extremists that are actually sitting members of Congress. A few members have been removed from their committee assignments due to making threats and encouraging violence against their Democratic colleagues. Do you think that these members have had sufficient consequences? Trey. We can't hear you. Are you on mute? We can't hear you. I'm sorry, Trey. We'll go back to you. Okay, we don't have you muted. You might want to log out, Trey, and then try to log back in. Okay? Michelle, as a state representative, you had a front row seat to a lot of the extremism in the Texas House this last session. I'm really interested to know what that experience was like for you as a sitting House member.
Yeah, I had a front row. I was also served on the elections committee, so I had a front row every single week of what was going on the voter suppression bills that came out and how bad they could possibly be. A lot of there's a lot of in your head swearing going on like every day.
Yes, I imagine.
And you're like, what am I doing here? Because the thing is that it was very evident that especially when you're on the committee, that was like the I don't know, like we were getting hit with it every single week, day after day. And a lot of people don't realize, like, our committee hearings, like we had committee hearings that went at 14, 16, 18, 22 hours every single week, but we were prepping as Democrats on that committee. We know these bills are going into lawsuits. We know so we're setting them up with lawsuits. Now, I'm a small business owner, so I have never been around as many lawyers in my entire life as I have being a sitting state rep. But we would go, so our weeks were spent meeting, getting our strategy in there, and then for these bills for the pending lawsuits that they're happening now. So like last night I was I'm a little tired because we saw that 40% of the mail ballots are being rejected right now in Harris County. We said this was going to happen in the committee hearing, because they're requiring people to put their driver's license and the last four of their social, and people have been programmed not to do that because now we're going to identity theft for these 65 and older. So people are not putting those numbers on, and so these ballots are being thrown out. Now, this isn't just one party or the other. They're just across the board being thrown out. But the reality is, it is a form of voter suppression because Republicans do not want mail ballots for whatever reason. They just think that they're going to be. I honestly never got an answer because we do not see widespread voter fraud. But every day we come in, and it was very stressful because we were fighting for our democracy. And I worked with Jessica Gonzalez, and I were like every single day, hours and hours. We happened to be staying in the same condo building. So after our end of our day, we would go into there. And I was also on international relations and economic development. But, that committee hearing lasts maybe an hour. That was no big deal. That was very non-confrontational. But you're spending so much time wasted on these false boogeyman. It was very frustrating for me. I got elected with not traditional support in Denton County. Nobody thought I was going to win in 2018. And so I'm kind of an anomaly in that I'm not like, I'm there for the people. And so for me, seeing this baseless time wasted it was so frustrating. I mean, we have a grid that doesn't work. We have our Texas Workforce Commission. Our website is run on COBOL. We need to upgrade it and invest in our infrastructure. When you start digging into this, having been an elected official during a pandemic and then that ice storm and all of the work that we had to do, there's so much that needs to be fixed in Texas that spending it on these like boogeymen that don't exist with no data backing it and the Trump's lies, it was very frustrating. It was very frustrating from the Democratic standpoint.
I can't imagine. I know it was frustrating for all of us just to watch, just to watch and feel what was going on and feeling kind of helpless because we knew we were outnumbered, unfortunately.
And the reality is, I think if anything, this shows us, and I know that, we've got Grant running in Fort Hood and, Trey running in districts that maybe aren't deemed winnable, but we have to have Democrats running on every single dog catcher, ISD, municipal. Even if you can't, we've got to clean up our data and get better. And we're dealing with much better data than we had in 2018. I will tell you that. So we are farther ahead. The needle is moving, but people have to be afraid to not be afraid to vote for Democrats. And we have a better platform. That is the reality.
Yes. And data is something that people don't really talk about, but it's so important for the Democratic Party and the candidates to have that data. And almost all of that comes from the primary election, which is why it's so important for voters to participate in the primary. Besides just getting our candidates for the ballot, it actually affects fundraising. It affects how people can run their campaigns. So it is really important. I want to check in with Trey and see if we're back on. Trey, can you hear us? We still can't hear you. Oh, no. We'll come back to you in a minute and see if we've got it worked out. If we can't, this system doesn't work really well on phones. So that may be what it is. And if that's the case, we can come back and reschedule you and get you on another time because we really want people to hear what you have to say. Okay. Michelle, the producer, says maybe switch to Bluetooth while you're talking. You want to try that really quick?
Yeah, sometimes if you're in a car, sometimes the car takes over connected.
It gets kind of, our technology
Uh-oh,
really can be frustrating. Yeah, he's frozen. We'll go ahead and go with you, Grant, and we'll try to get back with Trey if possible. If not, we'll reschedule him, and that's okay. Grant, you're running for Commissioner's Court in Hood County. Hood County is really known for its far-right politics, with part of the local Republican government really focusing on fear-mongering and negativity. Do you feel like other important issues in the county are being neglected?
I do. Thanks, Adrian. Yeah, it's been an interesting time here in Hood County. I moved here in 2012 and built a business and got to know the community. And we're in an era of unprecedented growth in Hood County. We're growing like crazy. There's a real demand for new houses, businesses, and that sort of thing. And the county government has failed, frankly, in keeping up with that and planning for it and looking into the future. It's been Republican held for over 20 years. And I just feel like they've put their head in the sand about infrastructure. And they've gotten a couple things going, but it was kind of really driven from the state level, not really from the local level. And so the real thing that's, they're talking a lot about, these social trigger issues that sort of rally the base to around around the religious right and the white nationalists, and they keep beating that drum, and it's distracting from really doing the work of the county, which is take care of the roads, take care of the infrastructure, take care of making sure that we are prepared for this growth. We had phenomenal growth in the last 10 years, almost 30-something% within the county, and so it's they haven't done a great job, really, because they're constantly being distracted by book issues in the library that there's some controversy about that they keep dredging up. The one of the latest ones has been really going after the election administrators here in Hood County. We've already run off 2 of them in the last 3 years, both perfectly competent, both excellent, and very detail oriented, and really about having fair elections. But because one of our commissioners got a bee in his bonnet about numbering for ballots, and the fact that the last elections administrator didn't kind of bow down to him and the county clerk and make sure that they got the information first, they ran her off.
And that particular county commissioner is in the place currently that you're running for, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
so,
he's up in place 4, and so we're going to see if and he's got some competition. So if hopefully his own party can kind of take care of that, and then we can take that place come November.
Absolutely. Let's try Trey again. Hi, Trey. No, still can't hear you. Can you hear us? Yeah. Okay. I have a question from Brian, and anybody can jump in because I'm not real familiar. But it says, any thoughts on protesting or bringing attention to the issues at the Jazz Festival?
Yeah, there's a jazz festival, I guess, planned for Hood County coming up at the end of March, I believe. It's there's always this choice, I think, that we as Democrats have to make when we are in intensely red areas. Protests tend to go I don't know, they tend to go poorly, frankly. We've when my wife and I were out canvassing and walking our neighborhood back in 2018 during the governor's race, we had the benefit of using the van to go and find like-minded people, Democrats, and go and talk to them out in the neighborhoods. And there's a lot of fear, and when we would go to these residences that and go knock on the door and talk about, hey, we're canvassing for Beto, and they were so happy to see us because they felt so alone inside of Hood County. They didn't really know that there were any other Democrats, and so this opportunity to get out and to kind of go back to Michelle's point about trying to be on the ballot, we need to show that we're out here, that we're in the county. But I find that being confrontational, like aggressively confrontational, has not been really helpful. I attended my first candidates rally this week, or candidates forum this week in Granbury, and presented myself on the panel as a Democrat. And I felt a little bit like a unicorn in the wild because, we were in this this whole thing is a Republican, and and Harold, who is running for county clerk, and myself were the only Democrats there. And I did have a gentleman come up to me after the event and said, "Hey, I just wanted you to know I appreciate the fact and I respect the fact that you stood up and said that you're a Democrat in this, what could have been a very hostile room." Unfortunately, he said, "I'm never going to vote for you because, I'm a Republican and I can't do that. But I do have to, give you at least a little bit of respect that you stood up and you stood up for what you standing, and declare what you're about and what you stand for." And so I have to appreciate that, and I want to make sure that we're presenting ourselves in the most positive light possible. And I'm not sure that going out with a bunch of signs or a bullhorn and air horns and things like that to try to protest something that's essentially an arts festival. I think we want to kind of encourage that here in Hood County. So
Right.
I appreciate the thought, Brian, but there might be a better way to get our message out.
And I have something about that. I mean, I flipped a state house seat in Denton County and became so. The reality is what we need people doing is registering voters and contacting Democrats, and protesting does neither of those things. If you want to participate at one of those events, voter registration, nonpartisan voter registration, non-threatening is the best way that you can help your Democratic Party there, is increase your voter registration. I don't know what the voter registration rate in Denton County, in Hood County is. I know Denton County, there's 140,000 unregistered voters that are eligible. So I'm sure Hood County is probably around the same. Maybe it's not as big a county, but percentage wise. So registering people, making sure everybody's voter registration is up to date could be the most important thing that you could do at that festival. And you could have a Democratic table to show that you're there.
Right.
It's not a protest. It's not a protest. So you want to have your presence so that other people see you. But I feel like that's more productive.
Yes. And I know that Brian has a question about the massive influx because the county is growing. Do we think that they're like-minded, far right, or are they going to eventually get the county a little bit more blue? I can give you my opinion on that. I know that we've had, I'm actually in Hood County also. So I know that we've had kind of a mix. We get new residents that are more like-minded liberals. Unfortunately, we also get a lot of people attracted to Hood County because it is conservative. So they're coming from other places intentionally to come to a more conservative area. So unfortunately, instead of bringing us more blue voters, I think a lot of times they're bringing us more conservative. So Trey, let's try you again. Can you hear me, Trey? No, we still can't hear you. I'm so sorry. I see you stopped the car and everything. Do you want to try your Bluetooth again and see? It may just be your phone. This streaming app does not do well on phones. It does better on like a laptop. Michelle says, Trey, we will reschedule you for next week. Okay. Thanks so much. I'm so sorry.
Good to see you, Trey.
Looking forward to seeing you. Yeah, exactly. Thanks so much, Trey. Sorry. That's the problem with Zoom is great but it has its limitations.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Trey. We'll speak to you soon. Okay, so let's go on. You both touched a little bit on voting rights and gerrymandering. Those both have been really hot topics in Texas since last summer when the State House Democrats left the state to prevent passage of the Republican voter suppression bills. Michelle, you were part of that group that left the state to fight for Texans' voting rights. Why did you feel that fighting against those bills was so important?
It was also the fact of the matter is we have such oppressive voting here in Texas already, and having sat on elections defending our right to vote, we have to stand up. Democrats have got to stand up to this tyranny. I mean, and it was all based on Trump's big lie. It's based on a lie. Even our own Secretary of State says our elections were secure, safe, and there was no issues. Well, okay, the one that they fired. Let me clarify that. There's a new Secretary of State who apparently can't get paper for voter registration forms. But they also refuse to do online voter registration. Online voter registration is like the biggest thing. We're only one of 14 states we don't have. That don't have it. And then they use this whole, that is the biggest form of voter suppression of what happened. I felt that if we had stayed, I did not go back to the floor for the other special sessions. I was not one of the ones that broke quorum. I believe that the strategy and the longer we stayed out, we could have, if we had stayed out longer, they could not have done redistricting, and this gerrymandering wouldn't have been what happened. And so the reality is we had an advantage that unfortunately some of my colleagues blew it. And the reality is these cinema mansion type Democrats, we have to really look at who you're voting for, especially in these safer districts. I mean, it's not that you're not working, but you have to, at the end of the day, what are your values? Are you Democratic values, which, protecting our rights to vote? We don't have, I'm not saying if there's a problem that we don't fix it, but our current laws catch most of any kind of fraud that goes on. And so we do not need to make it harder. And Texas laws, when you go start looking at other states, it's ridiculous. Now, the one thing we do have is 2 weeks of early voting, which is longer than other states. But that happened when the Democrats were in control of Texas. Let's remember that.
So, Michelle, correct me if I'm out of turn, but you're talking about that you did not come back. Now, some of the Democrats that did come back ended up with safe districts when the redistricting happened. And you, one of the Dems that did not come back, actually lost your district. Do you think that those have anything to do with each other?
Well, I think there's a lot going on. So, you got to take into that I was the surprise win of 2018. And I beat one of the former speaker's friends. And nobody thought, I was outspent 10-1. Nobody thought I was going to win, Democrat or Republican. And we flipped a district, became the first Democrat. And then, I was in that secret recording that former Speaker Bonin talked about. 7 times he mentioned me, because the fear of, here's this person in a conservative county that ran as a Democrat. I mean, I consider myself liberal, progressive. I don't think we need a title. I'm a small business owner and I'm fighting for the people. If that's what makes me liberal, fine. Then you call me liberal. But at the end of the day, I mean, we have to balance what we want, and the corporations are not paying their fair share of taxes. Which is why our property taxes are so high. There's so many loopholes. I could go into all the details, but he called me vile and heinous. They then I ran in 2020. They thought they could beat me then, and I just improved my margin. So the reality is the voters of Texas are really, at the end of the day, sick of all of this. We just have to be big and bold Democrats and get our message out there. And, I campaign on the Medicaid expansion. $100 billion of taxpayer money is going out of our state that we're already paying into because the Republicans will not take the Medicaid expansion, which would reduce healthcare for everybody, by the way. So the businesses want it, hospitals want it, everybody wants it except for, Dan Patrick and, all his minions.
Michelle, I want to ask, because I do hear people really discouraged by those voter suppression efforts and the gerrymandering. What do you say to people that think it's not really worth voting because my vote's not going to count because my district has been gerrymandered, or people that think my vote doesn't count because my county is red? What do you say to those people?
I've heard it. I mean, I'm in a red county. I'm the only, there's 2 Democrats elected in Denton County, me and a JP, and we both overlap our districts. And so the reality is I think that we have a trend in Texas. The trend was really big in 2018, but you got to remember Texas did not lose ground in 2020. We didn't flip as much as we wanted to, but we didn't lose ground. But the reality is your vote always matters, because if you, Adrienne, you and I were talking about Hood County and you're in the 20s, if you can get Democrats into the 30s, then you're going to get more candidates wanting to run. Then you're going to be not so defeated. But you can also, when I ran for mayor of Carrollton before I ran for state house. I did not win that election. I lost that election, but you can bring democratic values onto the table. And so then your city councils, your municipalities, your everywhere else can actually maybe take into some of those policies. Carrollton now got rid of its 287G agreement, which was where its police was working with ICE and it was doing some racial profiling. It no longer has it. I made it a platform. We also have a equal rights ordinance that these are now business friendly because they're business friendly. And if you come from the business friendly side of it, the reality is I just saw the Chamber of Commerce, their platform. Democrats in the State House and Senate voted more for the Chamber of Commerce platform than the Republicans. So, because at the end of the day, the businesses want these policies because it's the younger generations that want these policies. We are progressing, not regressing. And right now, Texas is going backwards. At some point, we are going to be like Kansas and we will feel where businesses quit coming here. At some point, it will happen. And I think we're very closely to that precipice.
I think so too. David says Republicans only won Texas in 2020 by 500K votes. 5 million Texans didn't vote. We can turn Texas blue. So that's a nice message from David, one of our viewers. Grant, I'm going to go to you about the voting issues in county. One of the sitting county commissioners led the charge to remove your local elections administrator. This ended up being on the national news because it reflected a wider issue going on throughout the country, with claims of voter fraud resulting in harassment and resignation of local nonpartisan election personnel. On a local level, do you believe that our elections should remain nonpartisan?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Adrienne. And that's the really sad part about what's happened here. We had a great administrator. We had a great elections administrator, very experienced, was president of the association that got, of elections administrator. She was president, the Texas president, came out of a Republican county in South Texas and moved up here. She has some family around here, and so she has some links to Granbury and Hood County. And so competent, strong, opinionated, but fair. And even though Trump won this county in the 2020 election, and let me back up just a second. She took over as elections administrator 6 weeks before the 2020 election and jumped in, got things organized, and made sure that the election went off, frankly, perfectly. I worked the polls and was a part of the team that was there and doing the vote, and it ran smoothly. She worked well with both Republicans and the Democrats here in Hood County to make sure that everything went smoothly, and it did. But like I said, it just wasn't good enough for that commissioner because he felt like he deserved some sort of preferential treatment. That the Michelle should be coming to him to clear everything before anything happened. When she doesn't work for him. She doesn't work for the commissioners. She doesn't work for the county clerk. She worked for the Secretary of State. And so she was going by the rules and laws that were set down and followed by the Secretary of State in the state of Texas. And, it became a personal issue between the county clerk and this particular commissioner and Michelle, who was our elections administrator. And so it shows that even regardless of whether Democrats or Republicans are in control of the county, and in this case in our county it's Republicans, they're willing to do whatever it takes to undermine the confidence in the people who are voting. That even in Hood County, there's some sort of corruption, and then there's some sort of voting irregularities that must be happening. And so it's just one little piece of a pervasive movement in the state and frankly in the nation that is undermining the foundation of our democratic republic. It's frightening. And to kind of go back to what Michelle was saying about being on being on the ballot is incredibly important. And I'm the president of the Hood County Democrats, and one of the things that I've been trying to do is get those people to stand up, even if it's just get on the ballot, show that there is an alternative to this one-party system that the Republicans have instilled here in Hood County. Who else has one-party system? Russia, China, Hungary. It's a concerted effort to take away people's rights to vote and to suppress the alternative to their terrible way of running the county. So that's why I had to put my money where my mouth was, which was I had to stand up and I've been asking all these folks to get on the ballot. Get on. Let's load up the ballot with Democrats. So, and come November, you want to come to the polls to support them. I got Harold to come in and myself to come in, and I'm really hoping that we're going to set an example. We're going to run great campaigns. We're going to be out there in the public, introducing them to like-minded people who believe in our systems. And so, my goal is to double. Let's have 4 on the ballot next time, and then double.
Right.
And so, in a few years, there will be a Democrat that you can vote for in November in Hood County.
And that representation, just being there, makes such a big difference.
It does.
To give people an option to where they can vote for Democrats that they believe in, instead of either voting for the lesser of two evil Republicans or skipping voting whatsoever. So it is really important. Michelle, I'm going to jump back to you, and I'm kind of going to give you the question that I had for Trey, because I think it could apply to you also. And about gerrymandering, like we talked about, your district was kind of dissolved and split. But gerrymandering has especially affected communities of color. What is your message to those voters specifically that may be so discouraged and affected by racial gerrymandering in Texas?
So the district that I currently represent, this House District 65, was a minority coalition district, meaning that there wasn't any minority that had full, it was 45% white and then minority coalition. We actually have a very diverse, it's one of the most diverse districts, or was one of the most diverse districts in the state. What it did, what they did so they cracked 13 precincts to draw around my house I no longer live in the district that I represent. The reality is that what they did in Denton County is because they're afraid the districts aren't going to hold as long. This is why we have to get Democrats on the ballot. It takes time. And we have to play the long game. Republicans are so much better at playing the long game. They've been wanting to get rid of Roe versus Wade for 30 years, and they're going to probably do it. Like, it's pretty much abortions are illegal in Texas right now, and they played the long game. And Democrats need to do the opposite, but that doesn't mean. So what we need to do is get these people get them on there, and we have enough under people who are not registered to vote. We can kind of outwork it. It's hard. It's going to be discouraging, and it takes time. Because you got to clean up that data. But the only way the data is going to get cleaned up is Democrats running as Democrats and on every single position. Just like, Stacey Abrams did this in Georgia, but you got to remember, Georgia, it took 10 years in Georgia. We're about 5 years into Texas, so we're halfway there. And we keep moving the needle, and we are moving the needle. And I know that it right now you can do countywide. They can't draw you out of your county. So we can win statewide. And once we do all of that, I personally, after seeing redistricting and having to go to the testimony of all of what happened, I mean, I think nonpartisan redistricting, where the people who are sitting on those seats should not be drawing those districts, Democrat or Republican, and we should have nonpartisan redistricting. And when you do that, you get voter turnout happens, and once you increase the turnout, then you get back to politics are boring because you're just in the middle talking about, the COBOL language that we're running our TWC on, which maybe some of y'all don't even know what that is because you're so young. You probably don't even know what it. I'm sure there's some tape somewhere that is running something in Texas. And we should get back to politics as boring, everybody kind of not being a little unhappy because we're all making concessions, which is what happens is you go back and forth. Okay, so we get to the middle. But the middle is where most people are. And, I get labeled as liberal, but that's only because Texas is so far extreme right now. If I moved probably to another state, I'd be like a Republican in a lot of states. And so, the reality is it's all labels. It's what policies do you stand for? And I think you get out there talking about your policies. With this pandemic and the county commissioners, I think people know what a county commissioner does now because they've kind of been forefront, and our county judges, especially with how we are going to help the indigent populations and, some of the things that these commissioners do that people don't know. And we just have to keep working. We have to we have to play the long game, and we're going to lose well. How about that?
And we need to lose by less.
Yeah, we need to lose by less. Each election, lose by less. But that's just the reason it is so important to vote in the Democratic primary is so that you get resources. But if you don't realize, you get elections resources, you get more, judges at the polls and all of those. As you move that needle, you get more and more resources. And so because it's based on your primary voting. And so that is why and I know there's this mindset because especially you see these crazy Republican primaries that are happening right now for Democrats to vote in the Republican primary. Absolutely do not do that. We can't find you. We can't get Democratic leaning municipal people that would then target you because we can't find you. Then you also aren't going to get resources brought into when people decide to run. And so, it's based on the primary. And once you get the primary, then they go to the general and then you can find it and you keep building. And I see that, I've seen it because I flipped a district and I understand it, but it's a long game. It took years. And I ran for mayor, and the city that I ran for mayor in was almost the same, had a 2/3 of the district that I represented. So it was kind of one big old long campaign, but you just keep moving the needle. You keep moving that needle and you can't give up, and you've got to play the long game.
Trey,
this isn't a sprint.
No,
it's an Ironman triathlon.
It's a long, and I want people to know that, especially young people that are just kind of getting involved and have enthusiasm, that, it's a long fight. It doesn't end on one election, and it starts over every year pretty much. So just because you may not win an election that you've been working really hard for, I think it's really important for young people, especially, to not get discouraged, because we are gaining every year and we are going to get there. I want to, Trey's watching us. He's running for Democrat Congress District 12. He says the more we engage with voters, the more we reveal what happens in the shadows, and the more we can move the needle. That's absolutely correct. And I want to talk a little bit about turning Texas blue, because that's what all of our goals are. Most Democrats in Texas hope the state will turn blue very soon, after decades of one-party rule has led to multiple large-scale problems with the state, like, for example, our healthcare system failures and our power grid disaster. Grant, your local commissioner's court is completely Republican and has been for decades. How do you think having a Democrat commissioner would change residents' life in a positive way?
I think, hang on just a second, I've disappeared. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're just frozen.
Okay. I don't know why it froze. So I think kind of going back to, I think what we've all been discussing is the need to to show up and be to be visible. I think there's been basically a disregard and a hiding their head in the sand kind of thing going on, because there's been enormous growth. They have not been supportive of the people who are coming in, wanting to start a business, wanting to build homes, and putting the structures in to support those. And so I want to really work with local governments, the cities that are here in Hood County, and then also regionally with the other counties around us to do some long-term planning and to pay attention to the future. And there has been no long-term plan for roads and infrastructure that's being followed. It hasn't been put into place by the Republicans, and so it's not there to be followed. And if you're not going to do a good job of growing if you do not have a plan to follow and then review that plan to make sure that it's adequate to the needs of the county. It's terrible. The fact that, like you said, they've been in power for decades. They should have been paying attention to the census. They should have known, and they could tell by just the number of cars that are going down 377 that they need to be working together. They need to be working with the cities. They need to be working regionally for a plan. And it's terrible. And there was a economic development council here that was going out to talk to, it was a kind of a partnership between the city of Granbury, Hood County, the Chamber of Commerce, and because of infighting within the Republican Party, this is what kind of blows my mind. The infighting within the Republican Party, that I still don't have a good answer to why it failed, but it failed. And so it means that there's some sort of infighting going on within the party, or there was kingdom building in the county versus the city. And so because there was no cooperation, it dissolved. And so now there's no one really either looking forward to infrastructure development or coordinated effort on economic development to bring businesses into Hood County. Let me see if I can do something here. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you guys, and I can see. I've got a question. So apparently, that you need broadband in Hood County. Apparently, you need broadband connection in Hood County. I think our governor vetoed that.
I'm at the end of a road in a cul-de-sac, and I was joking about I am on the dirt road on the information superhighway down here at the end of the road. And so, yeah, it is super frustrating. I'm not gonna call out my particular provider right now, because who knows, it might just cut me off. But there really needs to be some competition here.
Well, and the thing is I think the governor vetoed the broadband expansion. We actually we did something that was good, and we can't. What blows my mind is the rural Republicans voting for the Republican Party, because the Republican Party is killing rural Texas. I mean, literally, they're closing hospitals. You can't get business growth there because you don't have broadband. Roads, the farm to market roads are awful. I mean, it blows my mind. I just don't know what to say.
Okay, can y'all hear me?
I can't hear you.
Today is the day for technical problems. Things have been going too smooth. And of course, I've had the craziest week. So this just like tops it off. My son fell at school yesterday and knocked out both his front teeth.
Oh my gosh.
And my Twitter and my Instagram was hacked. So like,
oh my God.
I think it's just a cursed week and I need to go back to bed. But anyways, so let me catch up with what we were talking about, kind of flipping Texas. Michelle, if you were elected lieutenant governor, what kind of change do you think the average Texan would see with a Democrat in that office?
You know, that change is going to come gradual. The first thing that we have, the reality of the gerrymandering is there will be a Republican Senate and a Republican House. And the reality is we need a candidate who's strong enough to stand up and hold all bills until the crazy goes away. And I am that candidate. And I mean, I'm in a contested primary. So if you guys need a reason to vote in Hood County, you come out and vote for Michelle Beckley for lieutenant governor. They will try to strip the powers of the lieutenant governor, but and it will be a fight. And so the reality is, I know the rules of the I'm sorry, my phone screen. I know the rules of the House and the Senate. And so therefore, it's going to be that kind of fight. But, the Medicaid expansion will push for it. Whatever version of that we can get, we probably won't get the full. And it's going to be a gradual, the reality is I won't put the crazy bills on the floor. It will be the day-to-day bills that are going to help, the broadband expansion, the medical bills that will help hospitals, the bills that will help. Elections shouldn't even be a standalone committee. I would put it back in. It didn't used to be a standalone committee. It used to be with state affairs. It needs to go back there. It needs to be boring. If there's things that we need to fix, but it shouldn't be this big. It looks like a Republican mailer is how they ran the House. I would not do that. I would be there for the small businesses, the people, and just keep focusing of the people of Texas, which is also going to help all the businesses of Texas. I mean, it's just ridiculous what's going on there.
And I think that's something that's not talked about enough either. Democrats are good for the economy.
Mm-hmm.
We are. Historically, we are better for the economy than Republicans, but their messaging is such. And our message
that is a whole nother topic that we do not have enough time to talk about.
We could do a whole show on that, but I feel like that's something that definitely needs to be talked about more. Michelle has a question. Will Beto's election give House races a bigger boost than expected?
It's this year, with the pandemic, it's really hard to judge. Like, everybody just wants the pandemic to be over, and I'm with them. I want the pandemic to be over, and we're coming out of it. I don't know what your cases are, and I know what they are in Denton County, and we're at single digits in a population of 1 million. There's only one single digit number of hospital beds, ICU beds, and it's been that way for like months. Mm-hmm. So God forbid there's a big wreck on 35, because we're kind of screwed if there is. But the reality is, it's hard to tell if Beto. The reality is Beto had to build the infrastructure that the Texas Democratic Party had not built. And he has the computer infrastructure. He has the organizing teams. The organizing teams are out. I see them out in my area. I can see that they're working. And there may be just a random person in knocking on doors and doing the groundwork. I do think he always gives a boost, but it can't only be about Beto. We've got to have Beto, and the other statewide campaigns have got to get more in the press. They have got to be more bold. And one of the reasons I got on this race is because the guys that were running on this race weren't even polling in amongst Democrats. They were below 20% in November, and that is not going to win an election. So we've got to do. We've got to recreate what wins, and you've got to have big, bold personalities that aren't afraid to stand up for our values and get in the press and do things that get you the name ID that you need to do. That's one of the things I'm pretty good about, which is why I won my race the first time and then the second time. I think we have to be genuine and be authentic and be yourself, and just campaign on those values. And I do think Beto always helps being on there, and we'll see what happens, but it takes a combined effort. It's not just one candidate. It's Grant Wood running in Hood
Running
County.
in Hood, yeah.
Yeah, the wood in the hood, which I'm not even going to say what that sounds like. But anyways, but it makes you laugh. And if you make people laugh, then they actually tend to vote for you. So, you got to get some wood in your hood and get out there.
We've come up with a new slogan for you, Grant.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard, but it's wood in the hood.
No, I didn't.
But I know we shouldn't say that, but apparently that's what women like to talk about. And so we just have to laugh about it. But I think we need to make sure, that the more we see that, it's every door that you knock on, every person that you knock on. That's the other thing, is that whenever you have a candidate, whether they're just a placeholder or and let me just say, when I say they're a placeholder, that is not a bad thing, because we need them. In our Republican counties, we need a full ballot of Democrats. And one of the reasons that I won is my area has a lot of old Ann Richards Democrats, which is what I am. And we had hibernated because we won't vote for Republicans. And so we'd go out and we quit voting. And I had the typical Democratic voting record, which is hodgepodge. Okay, sometimes I voted, sometimes I didn't. Then in 2017, I can tell you I voted in every single election since 2017. And you need to know when they are. That's the other thing. If you're not voting in the primaries and doing this stuff, you're not getting targeted for the municipals. You're not getting targeted in all of these races. And it's not just about the big races, it's the little races, it's all of them. And so it all is it's going to take all of us to flip the state.
Michelle, I wanted to ask you something really quickly, just because I've seen a lot about it on social media, and I know that you were there on the Beto event last weekend. What was did you experience threats or with the kind of the Trump MAGA people coming out to intimidate the people from using their First Amendment free speech? Did you see that or experience any of that?
I didn't see that. But okay, so when I can't remember what month it was, because it's 2021 and it all blends together. But either in June or July, when Beto did another event, we did an event where we were talking about registering voters, and I was out there with him, and it was before we went to Washington, if that helps. And so we had quorum, we killed the elections bill, and then Beto did some rallies. And so I was in Denton County. I was actually more afraid at that one. There was much more of them at that time. They had their, open carry. And so they had their guns, and they were way more aggressive. And the police weren't as active at that one. And that was the first time I had seen that in Denton County. And I've been campaigning here since 2017. What I saw, what I took away is, yes, there were some angry people there, and they did, they did a knockdown one of the people that was recording, but they were afraid of their license plates to be seen. Like, they did not want people to know who they were. And so they were more afraid this last time than they were in July. And I think the reality is a lot of people in North Texas are in jail for the insurrection because it's against the law. And they're in jail. There's a big portion of Denton and Collin County people that were at that insurrection that are in jail. And so and then they're getting, if they've got small businesses and stuff like that, it's not reflecting well. And so they don't want people to know who they are. So that is what my takeaway. And she videoed it. And so they are becoming less emboldened. They were less emboldened than they were in June and July. And if you go back if you go back to that, but the fact that they knocked her over and were screaming at her personally, but I don't know that people walked into the June and July one mainly because they had guns. I did not see that level. They were open carrying, and they were a little more, and there was a lot more of them. I didn't see that parking lot where I came in, because I came in and just it just seems like I came in and then I saw like 5 to 10 of them. I think I posted 5 to 10, and then she corrected me that there was more like 20. And the thing is that they are more afraid of being seen, because now they're burning books. Let's be realistic. If any regime that burns books has never done well in history, okay, ever. ever done well in history. And you're banning books and burning books. And now what are you doing? I can tell you how many teenagers are now reading all those books. Thank you. Thank you, Representative Krause. More of the younger people are now reading all of those books. They've gotten off of TikTok and they're reading those books that you banned. Because you tell a teenager that something's banned and they're going to go read it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to pull them out of the.
Yeah, the
you don't have to pull them out
CRT
of the
is now
library.
moved to books. It's like
Yeah.
everything with CRT now it's books. It's like, I mean, the Republicans have been in control of the state for decades. Why have they been allowing all this CRT and pornography in the libraries for all these years? And just now it's this huge problem.
Well, we need to be worried because they're trying to privatize schools. And
Right,
that is where they're
exactly.
going next.
That's
That's where
the
they're
goal.
going next. That's what they've done. Why do you think we have all these toll roads in North Texas? And that's the privatization of the roads. And guess who's paying for it? We are, not the corporations who should be. That every time you pay your toll tag bill, that's a tax.
Mm-hmm.
And I call it the road tax because and where I live I've got a geographically small district. There are 3 toll roads in it.
Wow.
It's ridiculous because that's the mode they're using. And, they don't ever go away. And it's just, I mean, when my husband was going to work every day, our toll tag bill was $200 a month. Wow. Because you couldn't get on a road. And I mean, and that's chipping away at everybody. So but they're trying to privatize the schools. That is their
Absolutely.
next thing. And that's what this CRT is. That's what the attacks are. And we have a crisis. We didn't even have enough time, but I've got to go here in a minute. But we didn't even judge the crisis that we have in our schools right now before the pandemic of the teachers not going. I'm going to guarantee teachers not the teachers not wanting to shortages. We have shortages across the state, and now we've got teachers just quitting now. Like they don't care. Like they don't care about their retirement, especially the younger teachers. And nobody's going to go into that profession.
Right.
And let me just say, I contacted the comptroller. We have, as of November, a $12 billion surplus in the Texas budget right now. We could be taking care of this education shortages, and we should be giving our educators and the support staff a bonus for dealing with all of this from the pandemic, which we have not done. And I'm talking about a hefty bonus. I am not talking about some piddly ass bonus.
Yeah. And then I feel like the ultimate goal, and we'll have to have you back on and talk a whole hour about education. But like you said, it is to defund our public schools and privatize them into profit making or religious schools. And the kids that will suffer is the low income children that, whether or not they get a tax break, their parents still aren't going to be able to send them to these schools, and the schools don't have to take them. So,
but it's not going to just affect the low income. It's going to affect the middle income because people are not going to want to pay their they will not do what needs to happen for the property tax relief. There are things that can happen. And they are not willing to do it. And so they're trying. And remember, if your property taxes are high, that's because of Republicans. That is because of Republicans. They have been in control for 24 years and they have not fixed it. So there is one party that is in control of your property taxes. And then, we could go into all of this, but the education and I graduated high school in 1988 in Carrollton Farmers Branch, and Texas was in the top 10 at that time. And Democrats were in control. And then the state paid 67% of the school the school tax. The 67%. Then it got down to 37%. We got it up to 47%, but we're still not where we need to be. We started working on it when Republicans thought they were going to lose. They started working on education. But then, anyway, we could go into it. And I need to stop. I need to stop talking because
we could do a whole nother show on it. But we're running a little bit over on time, Michelle. I know you have to go, so I'll give you a few minutes to tell people how they can reach you, and then you can go ahead and log off if you need to get back on your other meeting.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it was great being here. And I love seeing counties that are flipping because, whether you're at 20%, going to 30% is flipping. Do 1%, go by the percentage. It's baby steps. Okay, I love seeing that. But the reality is I'm Representative Michelle Beckley, and I'm running to be your next lieutenant governor. I'm a small business owner. I went to all the public schools. We talked about that. I have a degree in biomedical science from Texas A&M. Again, another great institution, public institution we have. And I really want to focus on healthcare, education, and making sure we really have this grid fixed. You can reach me at michellebeckley.com. That has my website. And because I will tell you guys, I'm going to make a plug. I really need donations because we need to increase our texting to the mail-in ballot people to make sure that they add what they need on there. And so last night that was what my team was talking about. We're going to increase the texting to the mail-in ballot with information so that they don't have their ballots thrown out. It's going to be really crucial that somebody reaches out to these people right now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much,
Thank
Michelle.
you, guys.
I really enjoyed talking to you.
Great. Thank you for having me on. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Grant, if you have a second, I have another question for you.
Cool.
Jack says, understanding the landscape where we live, do you have plans or ideas for reaching across the aisle in an attempt to sway support from moderate Republican or right voters?
Yes. That's the only way that I could even be effective. If I won't say if, when I get elected to the Hood County Commissioners Court, I'll absolutely work with Republicans. Want to work with Republicans. I think there's a dissatisfaction within the Republican Party about how the politics of the county have gone. There's a very small group of very hard right Republicans that seem to be in control of whatever party apparatus there is. But there's a whole bunch of people in the county that are Republicans, but what we think of as, logical, rational Republicans who want good governance, who want infrastructure, who want the county to be run in a proper fashion without a lot of distractions that are made up to take away from the business of the county. So, I am pro business. I am pro growth. I've lived in the county for 10 years. I built a business here. I want to support the things that are going to bring people to Hood County, that are going to employ the people in Hood County, and so they don't have to go to Fort Worth. They don't have to go to Weatherford. They don't have to go down the road to go to work. They want to work here and they want to live here. And I want to make sure that we're looking into the future to build the Hood County that people really want to live in, and that's open to everybody, not just
those few. I think your sound was cutting out a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, now I can hear you good. It may be because I was talking over you. Yeah, it's just that catering to the few kind of extremists, which, as much as they put themselves out there in social media with signs, I honestly do not believe they represent the majority of the community. I think the majority of people are moderate, and the majority of the people are not happy about all the bad publicity that they brought into this county, which relies on tourism for growth and for income. Tell us, just for the people watching that may not know you, about your business background a little bit, and then we'll wrap up.
Sure. So when I moved to Hood County in 2012, I came because I was going to found a business called Revolver Brewing. It's down in the Acton side of the world on the way to Pecan Plantation. I worked with Rhett and Ron Kiesler, and the idea was to build a little brewery out in the Texas countryside and make great beer. I came from years of experience at Pearl and Lone Star and at Samuel Adams, and I was really excited. I am still really excited about the opportunity to come back home, to come back to Texas, to build a business. And it worked beyond my wildest dreams. It blew up. We came up with a great beer called Blood and Honey. We went regional, and it's now statewide, and being taken out to other states. And so it was a fantastic experience, and Hood County supported us, and now we have support all over the state. And so I was able to take a step back from the company after we sold the company to a larger brewery, and just having this opportunity to kind of slow down, look around a little bit. I want to take this time to do community service, to support my town and my county and my state by serving the public. And as we've all been talking about over the last hour, it's been 20 years, and the Republicans have done everything they possibly can to strangle state government, to choke it, to prevent it from being an effective partner with its own citizens to provide the services it should be providing, to disenfranchise entire communities, to ignore. I've been thinking of this. It's sort of like you call them the GOP. It's the Grand Ostrich Party that's been burying its head in the sand over the last few years. People want to move to Texas. I mean, it's great here. It is, but the pro-business community is pro just a few businesses. And if you aren't a part of that, then you get left behind. And then their own failures in trying to guard the infrastructure, the almost complete and utter failure of the power system last February is a blistering indictment of their incompetence.
Absolutely. Grant, tell people how they can learn more about you and your campaign and support your campaign in Hood County.
Sure. I have a very tiny presence right now, actually. I'm on Facebook. I do have a Grant Wood for Commissioner page on Facebook. You can find it if you look for me. There's not much there right now. Like I said, if I'm running unopposed in the primary, and I've been really just going face to face and meeting people and doing a little bit of fundraising. Come after the primary, you'll be able to, I'll have a website up, and I'll have more activity on Facebook as we begin to ramp in on social media. And then I'm just going to be walking the neighborhood. I'm going to be out in the county, introducing myself to people. I'm a deputy voter registrar, so I'll be registering people to get them to vote in November. And it's going to be a real grassroots campaign. You've got to organize the community. You got to be out there in the neighborhoods and organizing them. And it's real. And here in Hood County, as you know, Adrian, we're going to be doing a lot of basic blocking and tackling. Mm-hmm. Just get the message out there that there's a Democrat on the ballot, and get people to the polls. It's going to be incredibly important.
It's that basic work that it's hard work, but it's what wins elections, especially local ones. Let's go ahead and wrap up. We've run a little bit over time, so I appreciate everybody hanging with us. Grant doesn't have a primary opponent in the Democratic primary, so congratulations.
That doesn't mean you shouldn't get out and vote.
No, you definitely still need to vote.
Yeah.
I'm on the ballot too without an opponent. If anybody wants to swing some votes my way, I still appreciate them. Yep. Thank you all so much for being here. It was so much fun talking with everybody, even through our technical difficulties. Just a reminder, early voting starts in Texas on Monday, February 14th for that Democratic primary. Thanks again for being here and watching Blue Talk Texas. Thanks for our questions from our viewers. If you can please like and share this video so more people can hear about these amazing candidates. Thank y'all so much.
Thanks, Adrian.